Are you able to see the schedule now?
Where is it under?
It is, should be right there on your screen.
Yeah, I
Oh,
can
yep.
see it now.
Okay,
Thank you.
so let's kind of run down here where I am. This has been posted out on Blackboard, and it's under the tab that talks about the syllabus, because I had an initial setup for that, and I'd attached it to the syllabus. So I had a schedule out there for you. But because of changes, because things didn't get off as quickly as I had hoped, I've had to adjust everything. The particular thing that I'm most concerned about is setting you up for the two activities that you have that you're going to be doing during class. One of them is making the decisions for the game. Oh, that's interesting. How did they get that? Uh, try this again. One of them is a decision you're going to have to make for the game, and the other one is a PowerPoint presentation you'll have. So if you were to go back out to the original one, you would see that we probably would have had the first decision due today. And what I've done is adjusted, and well, just to kind of give you what I've got here on this schedule. I show the topic for the day. I have a film clip that I try and show every time just to kind of get it settled in. Then there will be dates on which you'll be giving a PowerPoint presentation. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to be giving, and I have all of them marked here so you can follow along. And as I show them, I post them out on Blackboard under PowerPoint decks. So you can go back and look at everything that I've shown you and will show you for the rest of the semester. And then finally, over on the right, I have the decisions by class session. So if we go down this schedule, everyone with me so far?
Yep.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Okay. So if we get down here to 212, and I'm actually not going to actually do that Drucker on profit because I just am not going to have enough time. We get down to next weekend on the 19th. There are two things that you'll have. One will be the trial decision will be due, and the other is that Team A will be making a presentation on can you see what your strategy is, or say what your strategy is. And that's an article for the Harvard Business Review. The same day, in order to get all of this done, the group B will do what makes a leader. So far, so good?
So each of the individual groups does a separate PowerPoint. Gotcha.
Yes, and I'll show you the listing that we have on that in just a minute. The following week on the 26th, you'll have trial number 2. And incidentally, you'll notice that for example, in February the 19th, I have 2 different sections because I want to match these up with the same thing that I'm doing. I have 4 other classes, all of which are kind of on the same schedule with you all. So on the 26th, you'll have trial 2. At the end of that second trial, what I do is I reset the game calendar and you go back to ground zero. On the 26th, that day of the second trial, Group C will be giving a presentation on an article called Leadership that it should be that gets results, and it is plural and not singular. And then we will go the following week to decision number 1. At the end of the second trial, I'll give you a couple days to look over the results and see what you all can discern about the direction that you're going or that other teams are going. And then I'll set the meter back to 0 and you'll start all over again at exactly the same place. On the date of decision number 1, the 5th of March, You'll also be doing the case study on LumaScape. And as I said a little bit earlier, when Ryan was asking about that, this is a kind of a binary decision. The company has is in the process of implementing a new strategy, which is far different from what they had done in the past. And a big order comes in that would have to be fulfilled under their old strategy. And the question is, do you take the money and run, or do you be faithful to the new strategy that you set up? So it ends up with a pretty interesting discussion. The next decision after that is the following week, the 12th. And then we're moving pretty quickly into Easter. So we have the 19th, where it'll be decision number 3. And then the 26th December, decision number 4. We'll get one more group making a presentation, and then we go into Easter vacation. The cadence then picks up the same way after the vacation's over. I don't need to go through all 10 decisions, except one thing I'd point out. In this week, the week that you come back after Easter, 2 decisions are due the same week. Now, you can say, well, hi, they can't have them both the same day. No, they won't be the same day. And in fact, what I did is up at the top here, I said the decisions, that the BSG decisions are by class session. They're not specifically tied to the day of the that we have our session. It could be a different day. So that takes us to the next document. Is everybody comfortable with this document?
Looks good so far.
Okay, so let's stop and move to the next document, which is this, the decision schedule. And this is for your team. Everyone can see that?
So
Which
far,
is
yep.
Industry 102. Why am I having, you are screen sharing. Now, why can't I move?
It might be able to be moved to the top, Professor, but I think it just stays on either the top or the bottom.
Yeah, so let's see what happens if I, nothing there. Oh, here we go. So you have a copy of this in your in Blackboard. And this shows up in a new tab that I put in there. It's called BSG Updates, I believe is what it's called. It'll be the only thing that says BSG Updates or anything like that. And it has this schedule. And it tells you that the first thing that you have to do is today there is a quiz that's available to you. And that quiz, you have it takes 45 minutes. And it's due on the 19th at 2300 hours, 11 o'clock at night. That's the same time as your first trial decision is due, same day, same time. Now, this quiz is designed to help you understand the player's manual. So it's not really graded, you do grade it, but I'm not even gonna look at it. It's just for, it'll put a score on there, but it's meaningless to your final grade in the class. But I want you to go through it because it'll help you make your decisions.
Sorry, just really quick, I went out to see the BSG updates tab on Blackboard, and the file that's saved out there is the Tuesday, Thursday class file.
It says what?
It says Tuesday, Thursday, not Friday.
It says that, but it is the same one. So if you go into it, it's the Friday dates.
Is there? I put the new ones in for you all this afternoon, so I think everything is in there that you're supposed to be seeing. And who was that went out and looked and couldn't and found something else?
It's Genesis. I'm looking at the master BSG game schedule that's saved out there, and I show different dates on this file I have BSG quiz 1 available February 10th.
Oh, that's interesting. I had mine on the 12th.
And mine's showing the 10th as well. I don't see
Huh.
it doesn't say Industry 102 or anything. It just says master game schedule and then lists all the dates.
Let me reload. Maybe it's just I got an earlier version.
Yeah, because what you have on your screen right there, I don't have anything like it connected to my Blackboard. I have a master game schedule. That's what it's called.
Yeah, it should be called Master Game Schedule, and that is, that was up.
Oh, yeah, no, I just reloaded and I got the Tuesday, Thursday as well. It's now on the 10th, 16th.
Yeah, it's 10,
So
16,
that's
17,
interesting.
so on and so forth.
But no, yeah, the earlier one, or at least if there was an earlier one, was saying exactly what you got up on the screen right now. So, whoops.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
But we also have the dates on the actual program itself, so we could probably just use the calendar from the BSG website. 'Cause that's probably the most accurate one.
in fact, I would encourage you to pull down a copy of that calendar. Because as you can see what I have on the screen here, what I tried to do is to set everything up to go off at 11 o'clock at night, but there are a couple things that you have to have a different schedule on. So for example, you can't do the quiz until you get a copy that's available. And that I set up at 12 noon today. The deadline for completing that coincides with the time you submit practice round 1.
Yeah, so it should be 3 things every week from what I can tell. There's a simulation quiz, available simulation quiz deadline, and then a practice decision 1, which will turn into normal decisions as we get forward further.
And that'll only be for decision 1 or trial decision 1, and possibly trial decision 2, because you have those 2 quizzes that are thrown into the mix.
Yeah, I'm looking at it all right now. So it's quiz 1 and that same, and
And
then it's the same
subsequently,
formula
everything should be set up for 2300 or 2300 hours or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, everything's set up for that way. Opens at 8, closes at 11.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, in spite of the fact that I do that, I'm going to find that when I get down to a section here called mid-game evaluations, which is due on April the 9th, about a third of you'll forget to do those on time.
Oh dear.
So I try and set it up to make it as easy as possible. As you could tell from trying to get out to what I have put out there. Yeah, that's easy. Are you kidding me? But I've tried to set it up to make it as foolproof as I can, and it never works out that way.
Yeah, but as long as everything's done through the BSG website, and this is an actual schedule that can be manipulated and clicked on and go through the assignment, that's what I'll be using instead of trying to find like a Word document or a PDF to go off of.
And you can pull up this schedule like I have on the screen right now and make a copy, a hard copy that you can put in with your other paperwork so that you don't forget it. Now let's see, so there's one more document I want to show you. And that is the articles for PowerPoint. And you could see, I described earlier that we would be doing 2 of them on the 19th. That was Article A and Article B. And that means it'll be done by Team A and by Team B. These are all about 5 or 6 pages long. They're all available for free online. And what you do is you Google it, and they may ask you to sign up. It doesn't cost you anything to do it, to get access to a certain number of articles for free. But you'll get this for free because it's your first article to begin with. And secondly, if they tried to charge you, you can go to the file library and they have all articles back to 1922 online, and you can get it there. And what I've tried to do is to select some articles that really have some bite for people who are going to be in a CEO position. And that's what I'm trying to work for or work toward for you all is to help you in making the kind of decisions that a CEO would make as part of his regular routine. So these go all the way down actually to Team J, but there is no Team J in our class. We've run out of people before we got to the end of the list. And I think you'll find all of these challenging, or all these articles challenging, but they're good articles. And the presentation I want you to make, typically people will use a PowerPoint, probably only 3 or 4 slides. Everybody's involved. I want everybody to be speaking. What you need to do, because these articles are all very dense. And one of my favorite articles is one that's called 7 Ways to Fail Big. Invariably, while I say pick one major point and run with it, you can't do all the stuff in 10 minutes. It would be that you could get out of this article. So with 7 Ways to Fail Big, they describe 7 different ways to fail big, and they give a couple of examples in each case. So there's about 14 that you could select from. And invariably people try and get all 14 into their 3 slides. And that's not what I want to see. I want you to take an article like that and say, look, they got 7 ways to fail big. Here's one of them. And this is so exciting. I think when you hear my presentation, you'll want to read about the other 6. So you want to leave your audience with a desire to get the article themselves and learn from that. All right.
This is something we present
Professor?
live in class.
Oh.
Is there something what?
We present this live in class, so we would
Yeah,
share our
yeah.
screen and show you it, and there's no
Right.
pre-recording.
Right. And I've had since we've been online, I've had some really thought-provoking presentations, quite good, but only keep it down to about 3 or 4 slides. There's a rule that we use. It's the 440, no more than 4 lines of text on the slide and 40 words total. Otherwise you get information overload.
Is the professor? I'm Diana.
Yeah.
Is it no more than 10 minutes? What's the
Right.
minimum? Do you have a
'Cause I
minimum
got-
and a max?
I'd like to keep it at around 10 minutes or less if we can, because I got a lot of
Okay.
other stuff I got to do with y'all. You know, I don't have that
Okay.
much time.
So Professor, if it
I'm-
takes us like, sorry, if
Go
it
ahead.
takes us like 30 or 3 minutes in order to present, that's fine with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Just double checking, because I know there are some students who are worried about that.
Yeah. So this is to put you in an uncomfortable position. You got to learn how to speak. And when you go to work, the companies
Precisely.
you're going to be working for will expect you to be able to do this with a certain finesse. So another rule, I've said the 440 on the slides. Another rule is tell them what you're going to tell them and tell them what you told them. That's the way we really do anything when we're communicating in a business situation. If you write a report, you tell them what you're going to tell them in the overview summary or the abstract or the executive statement at the beginning of the report. You tell them that's the body of the report, and then you tell them what you told them in the conclusion. So we do the same thing verbally that we would do in a written report. And that always works well, because it usually takes that many times to get an idea across. So that listing is out under information, I believe is where it is. That's on a tab called information. And since some of you are on there, you can take a look and confirm that I'm either right or wrong.
You are right.
Okay. Good, I got one right. And I still got time to go. Okay, are you ready to move on to something else here then?
Yep.
Unless anyone's got any other questions.
All right, so let's see, we've looked at the assignments for the presentations, we've looked at the schedule, and we've looked at the correct, what should be the correct order of march on the timing of the different decisions that you have to make. So that means I can close out all of this stuff, and that'll cut down. I've had a lot of trouble, Genesis, with my internet. And in fact, on my 1 o'clock class, I've consistently been dropped during the presentation.
Yeah,
I'm
that
gonna
was
just-
my fear with this time around. So I figure I'm safer if I just keep my screen, like my camera off, and hopefully I haven't had problems so far. So we'll see.
All right, well, we'll keep trying here, but I've now shut off a bunch of the stuff that I had open.
I had a
and
quick
I
question.
Huh?
A quick question about communicating with our group, because it looks like we're gonna have the presentation and it's the same group that we're also doing the business decision with in the game. What is the
Yes.
best recommendation for actually communicate? How can we make that work? Is there like a chat somewhere we can get their email?
So you do like a
Yeah, it's on the BSG game. It has your name and your contact information.
Oh, it's embedded in the game itself. Okay.
Yes,
I'll
because
go through that.
when you signed on, you did it with a user ID number, and that's what's out there.
on the
Okay.
game? Does it tell you what team you're on?
So it does for me. Blake apparently doesn't see. He's apparently still assigned to Team J,
I can see
right?
it on the game side, on the
Okay.
actual game side. The Blackboard, that thing that popped up, that was some like group chat or something that was made. But I can now see what
The
team I'm
that
on.
you're on,
Perfect, okay.
The team that's bolded?
Mhm.
Okay.
So-
It tells you like H company or whatever it is.
Oh, okay. So like Chris, company H is bolded for me. Oh, I says I'm with Blake. What's
Yeah,
that?
and it says there's 3 people. Yeah, you're in it, and then there's Sidro.
Oh, okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay. That was just my question. Okay.
Now, I've done the best I can to get you put into groups that'll work for your individual schedules. But some of them may not work out that well. And if we have to, at the end of trial 2, I can readjust, or we can move you to other groups to make it work more compatibly with your time schedule if I need to. I try and make sure there's an accounting or finance person on every team, because a lot of this game relates to the financial numbers. And there's 25 people, I believe, on my list now. And you have 11 accountants or finance people. So where usually I'm scraping to make sure I've got one on every team. And this one I could almost get 2 out of the.
Lucky us.
So that was kind of an interesting sidelight this time. All right, let's take a look at this. And if you've seen some of this before, you let me know. It's essential that you study the player's manual and the videos thoroughly, or otherwise you won't do well. You've got to put the time in, and the time to do it is now here in the beginning, so you can cruise through this toward the end of the game. And by the end of the game, you will be able to cruise through it. What may take you 4 to 6 hours in this first decision, you can probably do in an hour to an hour and a half at the end of the semester. And so I say on this slide, what you do in the next week is really going to be a determinant of your overall success with the course. And that's really true. You've got to put the time in up front. Now, again, tell me if you've seen this. Everyone starts at the same place.
Hi, Professor. Sorry.
yes.
I think we've already gone over these slides.
Okay. All right. So we'll be ready to go on to the next one, because as I said, I got a series of them here for you to look at.
Yeah, because I'm looking over my notes, and it looks like we ended with SIC corporate social responsibility and citizenship. So like low cost, low price, differentiated product, niche market, or best value for the money. So that be a market leader. That's what I have for the end of my notes.
All right, good. So let's just real quick, because I may not have gotten all the way through this stuff, and there's some of it is oh, it was the corporate social responsibility.
Mhm. Saw this.
Okay, and that's what I said. I think that's important, but I don't like it myself.
We also saw this slide as well. I think we were at retailer support. If anyone wants to back me up on that.
Okay,
Let's see here.
Yeah, my last note was worldwide strategy or niche strategy.
okay. Okay, we
Yep,
did
there we
did
go.
show you this.
Yeah, be a market leader. That's my last note right there.
Okay,
So selling retail directly online or both. That's my last little bit of note that I have.
okay, there you are. That's where we got to. That's about a third of the way through this. So, and let me make a couple of comments about this. Private label is only, and you can put this down in your notes, is only for when you have excess capacity. And what you get an opportunity to do is each round you get an opportunity to bid on a tender offer that's been made by the buyer, and that buyer is somebody like Kmart or Walmart or Target. And what they're looking for is something that they can put a Walmart or Target label on the shoe that you sell them. And it's strictly on the basis of two things: your price you're willing to sell and the quality of your shoe. And the buyers have a maximum number that they're willing to spend and a minimum quality that they're willing to accept. And if you meet those two criteria, you're in the game. And the game allocates the product from the manufacturer to the Walmarts and Targets of the world based on acceptable quality and the lowest price of any of the offers. If that is fully subscribed and there's still more goods that the buyer wants to buy, it goes to the next lowest. And it keeps on going up the ladder until you fully subscribe the product for the tender offer. Okay. There's another aspect to this. The quality required for the private label buyer goes up as the game goes along, because they want a quality comparable to what you're offering to your. Oh my, this is, let me take this call. This is a young lady from Vietnam. Oh, phooey, mister. She was a student of mine last year, and she went home, and she's a real sweetheart. So it's New Year's Day, and she's calling from the middle of Vietnam. Okay, so you're on private label. And this is all gutter business. Its value to you is it will take unused capacity and allow you to make a marginal contribution. And since you're half of your accounting and finance, I think you probably know what I mean by those two terms. Any response to that? Is anyone there?
Ryan, your mic is on.
Thank you. I realize that.
I thought I'm moving. I was all confused.
It makes sense. It's just a matter of making sure that, you are making as much as you can versus whatever you're putting in for the profit of the shoe, or for the cost of the shoes rather.
Yeah, what you'll run into, just to look at one aspect of it, the pricing on it, you may find that a private label shoe sells for $35. At the same time, you're selling a comparable quality to your retailer for $58. So you really are taking it in the neck if you use any of your usable capacity for private label.
That's very true as well.
So, but you know, $32 or $35 is better than nothing. So, and we'll go into this more with some other stuff I've got for you. You can have a geographic focus or a geographic balance. A geographic focus would be to go into, say, Latin America with a lesser expensive shoe. Because there's a lot of people down there that need shoes, but they don't have a lot of money. On the other hand, you could take, if you had wanted to concentrate in Europe, Africa, there you've got a more sophisticated audience who wants a higher quality, higher price product. So you could focus on either of those two areas, for example, or you could just balance it out and say we use the same thing for every place. Or you can go with a worldwide strategy or the niche in each market. Now, the way where you want to go is to scout out the competition. And the following slides here are from the reports in the game. So the key one that you go to is called the Competitive Efforts Report. And we're going to take a look at this, but I've done this all out on Zoom as well. And there are two Zoom YouTubes. I learned enough to convert it into a YouTube. Each are about 45 minutes long. The first one is one I did a week ago. The second of the two I did last semester. I think that the one that I did a week ago is maybe a little more correct or a little bit more on target, but some of the slides are not as crisp in the way the letters come out. It's kind of fuzzy. The older one, the one from last semester, I think the reports are all real clear. So when you get into this game, the first thing that you're going to want to do, first thing that you typically do is to go to the footwear industry report. Does that look familiar for any of you? Because there's no reason for you to have been in it up to this point.
It showed on the introduction video, so yeah, it looks
Okay. So the footwear industry report really doesn't tell you much of anything. Just to know what where your ranking is not this is at year 20, so this is the end of the game for this particular setup. It doesn't tell you much. What you need to do is to get over on the decision reports on the left hand side, the navigation panel. And you're looking at the first report of the first section, the footwear industry report. The place that we want to get to, though, is the competitive intelligence section, and specifically the comparative competitive efforts report, right there. And what that report shows you is where everybody is in the game. So I happen to pick industry number 87. You're in industry number 102. And I just grabbed some of this historical data. And to look at the report at the top, you'll notice it says North America, Company A, Year 18, Help and Print. North America, you've got 4 regions. North America always comes up first. And this is probably 40 to 50% of your total volume. And it's the place where I focus my attention. If I'm doing well in North America, I'm probably doing well in the other regions. The region that tends to be the most unusual is Latin America. Now, where do you have factories?
North America and Pacific Asia.
Yeah. So if you, yeah, but you, how many markets are you servicing?
4.
Yeah, you're covering the whole world. So you've got the 2 where you've got a factory, and then you got 2 where you have retail distribution. Recognize that even when you make product in North America, you ship that product to a warehouse that's offsite, and it gets distributed from that warehouse. It's possible for North America to make product and also ship it to South America, or even to ship it over to Asia Pacific. So you've got a variety of different combinations that you might use and you want to check out. When it says company A, for many of the reports, each company is shown individually. So if you're company C, you can see company C reports, but you can't see company A or B. In these things that are industry-wide reports, it's the same report in company A or through company F or company G, because it's an industry report. It's not an individual company report. The year involved is year 18, and there is a capability to go up on this tab where it says year 18. And what you can do is check it and go back to year 10. And that can be valuable sometimes when all of a sudden you're getting into some kind of, you're caught in a weed someplace and you don't know what's happening. So what you can do is go back and look to say, okay, this is where we started out. Now, where did we go awry? The biggest place that you'll find that you get out of, get in the wrong direction is in inventory. It's the biggest single variable you have to control. So let's go to the report itself. As I said, you're looking at North America. What I've put up here is 2/3 of the total report. The bottom third of it has the private label information presented the same way as it is here, and what I call the bubble chart, which shows where you are visually, where you are in the marketplace. So each company is listed across the top from A to L. 12 is the maximum number of companies can play the game. We only have, in this instance, 10 companies competing. And in addition to those titles from A through L, next to that is the industry average. And that gives you a good indicator of where you are in relationship to your competitors. Now, the most important part of the report for me is always the wholesale section, because not only is North America probably 40% of your total volume, but the wholesale segment is probably 75 to 80% of your total end user volume. When the game starts out, you have between 15 and around 15% of your sales are through the internet. As the game progresses, it automatically begins to increase the amount of volume available in the internet segment. But nonetheless, no matter how much that volume grows, the wholesale segment will always be your largest segment. Any questions on that so far?
Doesn't sound like it.
Okay. So when people get into trouble, what I do is have them come into my office, which you can't do, but you can still get on the, you can get on the phone, or we can have a private Zoom call to try and cure any problems that you see. And the first place I'm going to look is right here. And you can see that there's 4 different places where there's a yellow mark. And what that means is that the company did a good job of marketing, but they didn't produce enough to meet the demand. So if I were to go to column I, where I don't have a circle around it, but you can see that they had a shortfall of 752,000 pairs. They had a demand for 767. The line right above it says pairs demanded, they had potential sales of 767,000 pairs of shoes, and they failed to make enough. In this case, the shortfall is just dramatic, and there's a specific reason why that happened. But they spent whatever money they spent on marketing that product, and then when people came in to buy it, there was no shoes on the shelf. So if we look at column A and B, there were 301,000 pairs shortfall, 588,000 pairs of shortfall, and in company E there was 394,000. So let's just go back and take a look at that without the circle around it. The pairs demanded really represent the sum total of all of your marketing mix, of all of your sales efforts. The wholesale segment is made up of retailers, distributors, and wholesalers, but we can call all of them that's our retail segment. And I invite you to use all three terms interchangeably. But if we're now in year 18 on this chart, as you can see in the upper right hand corner, and by that point you should have a pretty good idea what your customers are demanding, your retail customers are demanding, and also a real good idea of what your production looks like. And there should never be a situation where you are that far out of balance, where, for example, in company A, where you had pairs demanded of 6 million or 6,045, and you were short 301,000. That's just too much. That's not good planning. Same would be true of team B or team E. There's a special case for team I. We'll discern in a minute. But what the game does is it says, okay, if people came in and couldn't find the shoes, the retailer, he'll direct them to, you couldn't find the Air Jordans, come over here and take a look at these New Balance shoes. They're good too. And so they buy the New Balance. And the sale took place. It's just that you advertised it for your dealer and he didn't use your shoes. So that's the that's the worst place to be in. Can you see what I'm talking about?
Because then probably be giving profits to your competitors is where you're getting at.
Yeah, you're allowing your dealer to make profits and you're helping to finance your competitor. Now, so the system, what it does is it allocates to make sure that everybody that needs shoes gets them. And if you go across that line where this says gained or lost, where the yellow marks are, if you go all the way across to the industry average, which is the light green bar on the right-hand side, there was a shortage of only 14,000 pairs for the industry as a whole. So all of those, if I read across here with the shortfall, 301, 588, 394, and 752, all those people got shoes, it just weren't yours. So, and it got so close that there was a shortfall only of 14,000 pairs industry-wide. So that's the first place I look. And the reason this happens is because it's just a mismatch. And the way I can correct that for teams A and team B would be to reduce my advertising a little bit, possibly reduce my retailer support, or increase my production, work some extra hours, pull back if I'm trying to sell in the private label market, pull back some of that business. In the case of Team I, you'll notice that they had a demand for 767,000 pairs, and they were short 752,000, which says they made, essentially they made 15,000 pairs, and that was what got sold. Well, how could that happen? Nobody's that misses stuff that much. Well, what happened was that this game takes your machinery and it depreciates at each cycle. And
They
when the
just didn't
value
rebuy
of
the.
your, I'm sorry,
They just didn't rebuy the machines. Oh, jeez. They
um,
didn't rebuy the machines when they were fully depreciated.
right, right. So and it happens every game. And it may even happen to you, even though you know what the secret is. What happens is, um, what happens is that the game physically removes the equipment when it's fully depreciated. And
Even
so
though it works,
what's that?
just because it's completely depreciated, the machine would technically work, right? Or are they assuming that once it depreciates to nothing, it's useless? Not only,
I can tell there's an accountant or a finance guy in the audience.
well, no, I'm actually a business management. I just
Okay.
know how accounting works.
Mercy, this is a very powerful class, because not only do we have good accountants and finance people, but we got people in management that know about finance and accounting. But as you know, the depreciation is a paper charge. It's
Yeah.
a bookkeeping entry. And yet we know that we buy a new car at the car dealer. When we drive out there onto the street, when we pull out of his lot, the actual value of the car goes down by about 20%.
Yep.
So it is a paper entry, but when you try and sell the car back to the dealer, you're going to get socked with 20% discount. So that is
we're all looking at paper entries here. We're not trying to see the actual real value of it. The fact that the market value might be zero, but the
right.
equipment still functioning, but the market value is zero. So according to a balance sheet, it's
Yes, that's it. But in this case, what they're saying, hey, this is physical depreciation too. And we know that we physically depreciate our equipment, but by keeping it up, by doing preventive maintenance on it and keeping it all oiled and everything, your equipment will have a much longer life. But part of the reality is that it'll have a longer life, but it won't be as productive as a similar piece of equipment that's purchased new.
all right.
And
So the better call is going to always be to retire that equipment, sell it for whatever you can, or scrap it and buy new.
yeah, that's right. There's you probably, if the guys in finance have probably heard of the DuPont formula. Does that ring a bell with anybody?
So yeah, DuPont it's not a depreciation schedule, but it's instead similar, correct?
Yeah, they use the depreciation schedule, and as they're evaluating a plant manager's performance, what they do is force him to put in the replacement value in his fixed assets, the pencil in the replacement value on his fixed assets, rather than allowing him to fully depreciate the equipment and try and improve his performance numbers, because he has a very small amount of equipment cost because equipment's fully depreciated.
That sounds
And-
right.
And the corporate is saying, hey, no, we want you to keep your equipment all up to date. So we're going to force you to do that by charging your account as though you had new equipment. And that'll force you to buy the new equipment.
So the new equipment, is it new old stock, or is it new stock to where it could perform better than the initial one?
Well, presumably, in practice, what we're doing is we're getting much higher productivity out of a piece of equipment.
Yeah, but there's productivity from the equipment being new versus the equipment being old, or their productivity as a new, better innovated equipment that
Yeah.
is able to produce more than the previous model.
And that's a good analysis. And who is making this comment?
This is Blake.
Okay, yeah, this is you're exactly on target, and that's very important that we examine things that way. And in the case of the game, you can buy refurbished equipment, or you can buy new.
So since there's a 5-year depreciation on all the equipment, should the new equipment be purchased, and we're starting on year 10, should the new equipment be purchased at the end of year 14 or in the year 15
Well,
decision?
what you can do is just follow along amount of net value of the equipment each year when you get your results. And when you
Okay.
see it getting down pretty low, okay, so let's start replenishing equipment.
Okay.
Now, is there like functions within it that can do basically run analysis on different decisions and say, okay, if I were to replace it in year 14 versus year 15, how much would I save versus, like run a analysis?
There's some analysis that you can do, but it really will not be as extensive as you're describing. So I can put in my decisions at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it'll give me a pro forma of what everything's going to look like, including profitability. However, that is done without having the decisions by other companies. So when you actually execute that decision, you end up getting vastly different answers or different results. But as far as doing what you want to do, you'd have to write your own model for that.
That's I'm probably overthinking this thing.
Yeah, because you got a lot of stuff you got to put in here, and what you'll end up doing is shortcutting in some areas. And as I tried to describe to one of my students from China, I said, you kind of have to use Kentucky windage. And I had to explain where Kentucky was, and also how that's when you aim your gun, you have to take into account or when you aim your rifle, you have to take into account the amount of wind that's out there, because that will
Bullet
affect
drop
where the bullet
compensation.
goes. Huh?
Bullet drop compensation.
Yeah.
So all of the choices you make, you're going to see within your own company. So therefore, you're going to see, as long as you feel you're in a solid place as far as your profitability going up year over year, you're going to feel good. And then all the other data is going to come in to give you an actual true benchmark.
Well, I'm going to show you another report here, and you'll see what happens when the other guys enter the mix. But there's other things to look at on this one. So the first thing I always look at, and so I'm going to go on to that, but I will come back to your statement. And is this Blake again?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, as I said, when I'm trying to diagnose a problem, the first thing I look at is the yellow marks. The second thing is the spread between my retailer price and what I'm selling at internet. In this case, I'm selling to my retail dealer at 72, and he's going to mark it up to probably $100. But he's going against me in my my internet sales, where I'm selling the product at $70. I'm not only not giving him any margin, not any opportunity to get profitability, but I'm actually selling at below the price I'm selling to him. So he'll drop you in a New York minute. And it's very important you keep your dealers happy. So you always want to make sure that you've got about a 40% markup. So just take your product, say column C or column D, their wholesale price is $60. That means that dealer or shoe store is buying the product for 60. And in order to get his fair margin, he's going to mark it up about 40%. That's another $24 on top of it. And so that means he's retailing at 84. We're selling on the internet. Company D is selling on the internet at 85. The dealer's happy. He doesn't mind that there's competition out there. He just doesn't want it to be unfair competition. So that's something you got to watch. Okay.
Yep, that makes sense.
All right. And yet you'd be surprised how frequently people forget about it.
So that's like passing on the cost that the internet cost, instead of passing that on, you sell to the wholesaler market, they're going to have a higher margin, but
Yeah.
they're not going to have the overhead. So all the overhead you save, you would be passing that on to the internet so they can hold that price.
Yep. And you also have to make a decision. Now, do I make that $70 delivered or do I charge him on top of that? That would make it a little more palatable to the wholesaler if you could say, well, look, I sell it at 70, but I put another $15 on there for delivery costs. So at that point, I'm at 85 versus Mr. Dealer, you're at 72. The next thing I look at is your actual pricing. Now you can see the company F is at $48. And all I have to do is go over to the right to the industry average. And you can see that it's $60. So he could real quickly kick his prices up by $12 and he wouldn't lose any business. He'd just be at industry average. So it's a good indicator to you. So you could just look at your price and see what it is, what the average is for everybody. Then I would look here at retail. The next thing I'd look at is the number of retailer outlets. Team A has done an excellent job. And I believe you start out at year 10 with 3,000 retailers. But they've been able to build up their retail outlets to 5,000, whereas Team F is sitting there with 590, in spite of the fact that they got a really cheap shoe. So what you got to do is you got to hang on to your retailers. Now, it turns out that Company F, if you look at their wholesale price at $48, and drop down one line, it says SQ rating. And SQ rating is a combination of styling of the shoe and the quality. And you start off at around, I think around 4. And by investing money probably in R&D and design, you can kick that up over time, up to as high as 10. And of course, you can let it deteriorate. And in the case of Team F, what they've done is to actually reduce the quality of their shoe. So while their price is cheap, the quality is so bad, nobody buys them. Now, if they wanted to, they could invest. You get there by investing in styling and quality. And as I said, you can go as high as 10. But this is kind of a bell-shaped curve, and the best return on your dollars invested in styling and quality are in the mid-range. So investing to get to a 5, 6, or 7 is probably the best place to be. And if you kick it all the way up to an 8, you're just not getting that much bang for the buck that you're spending on styling and quality. So Team A, in spite of all of the good success that they've had, and they ended up they are ending up with a market share of 20% in a marketplace where there's 10 competitors. They have taken their SQ rating up to an 8.7. And that's higher. It's a better quality than they need to have good sales. And can everyone see what I'm talking about where the 8.7 is?
Right, it's the second line for the wholesale segment.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Model availability, the third line. You could have between 50 and 500 different model style combinations. The sweet spot's probably about 150. The dealers would like to see you have 500 because the more options they have, the more likely they are to make a sale. And so salespeople always like to have a larger number of products to sell. Production wants to have 50 because every time they change a model style, they have to do a machine changeover. And every time they do a machine changeover, they lose productivity and they also end up with more scrap. So this is a dynamic that exists not only in the game, but in real life, that you have a combination of selling wanting more and production wanting the same, want to run the same thing all the time. I'm going to skip over delivery time. I'm going to skip over we're model availability. The next item down there is brand advertising, and you have to spend a lot of money on advertising. The average company, if you look all the way to the right on that line, is 17 million in sales in advertising, and it runs from as low as 10 million in advertising to as high as 30 million. But you want to be up probably in the at this point in the game, probably up at a 20 million plus range.
So what's going on with I at 0?
They just didn't spend any money on it.
So is that actually a strategic game plan, or is that something that we probably forgot at this point in this particular round?
It could be a combination of two things. I suspect it was a group that just didn't know how, never did learn how to play the game. And it was probably for a lack of trying. That's pretty bad. And I could say that without, because I'm not going to hurt anybody's feelings, because I don't know who they are that had that combination, but it's not good. So going down the remaining lines on this list, brand advertising followed by rebate offer. I always describe a rebate offer as sleeves off your vest, because people get that coupon that's good for $5 and they take it home, and there's a drawer in your house the same as there is in mine where you put all those kinds of things with the intention of using it the next time you buy shoes. And you don't take it out again until you look at it and see that it's expired, and then you throw it away. So it didn't cost you anything as a manufacturer to offer that discount.
Right, it's breakage.
Huh?
Right, it's breakage.
Yeah. So it's something that you may want to try, but you don't need to worry too much about that. The next item is dealer support. And what dealer support is the money you channel to your dealer to help him sell your product. It could be some pocket change that he can use for a little league soccer team. It can be local advertising on TV or radio or in the newspaper. It may be just a cash payment you give the guy and say, look, here's a couple $100. Have a nice dinner with your wife or girlfriend. Or it could be for special stuff inside the store, like in-store displays. Or it might be a discount on shoes. You buy a gross of shoes, we'll throw in 10 extra pair.
Wouldn't that fall on advertising and store displays and things like that?
You kind of have the choice as how you want to do it, but you got to have big numbers in both. And what the retailer does then is he starts buying from you. The next line there shows the retail outlets, and the number of outlets you have will be a function of how well you advertise the product and how much dealer support you give it.
So that's not a number you set. That's a number that's set for you based on other decisions.
Yeah, it's a number that will be set by each individual. And I'll guarantee you the team H and team I are going to do nothing but continue to lose dealers. Celebrity appeal. The celebrities are very powerful. If you watch Oprah, if she can take a very mediocre or an average book, and if she puts it on the Oprah Book Club, sales skyrocket. And it's the same with the other kind of celebrities in this game. So you buy the celebrity's endorsement, and what you want to be is you want to get up to about 150. Now I'm not going to waste time with you all going through all the nuances of celebrity purchases, but just to know that you want to try and get a value of about 150 or more. And it's just it's not, the number there is just kind of a selling pressure selling push from having more and more celebrity appeal. Brand reputation, frankly, I don't know what that means. That's a relatively new thing. And that pretty well covers this report. Spend most of your time on wholesale. Do try and build up your retail, your internet. Do make sure you keep enough margin for the dealer between your price to him and the price that you're selling at retail through the internet. Do everything you can to keep your dealers. Work on balancing out your production against the demand for your product. And keep watching that industry average because it'll give you a lot of good markers of where you can go. All right.
One thing that we talked about last week that we didn't get to this one, and it might be under the brand reputation, is corporate responsibility.
Yes. Corporate responsibility could be as little as it could be a foundation that you set up that sponsors a PBS series like Downton Abbey on the TV, or it could be as small as you could take $500 and put $100 each into 4 different programs, and you'll get your name on the marquee as being a contributor, but you didn't have to spend a lot of money.
So for this slide that we're looking at, this is showing each of the decisions that we make every week and how it affects. That's why if you come here, you can easily see a decision that you made that was either good or bad in a quick glance. That's the whole point.
Yes. And it tells you what the other guys are doing, because that's as important as what you do.
Yeah, but this is like the key. This is where you're going to be spending most of your time when you actually get into the game.
It sure is where I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot when you break it down individually, but then when you put it all in front of you, you can easily see like where you can adjust it depending.
Yeah. Now I want to finish up a little more on that corporate social responsibility. You gotta decide how much you're going to support the community, and I think we all have a responsibility and have a desire to be good corporate citizens, but don't focus on that at the expense of focusing on selling shoes. It's the sales of the shoes that give you the extra money to put in the community. And
So
don't
maybe-
ignore the community. If you don't do anything, the stock market will punish you.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So let's go on. I think we now go to let's see, celebrity appeal. Well, we talked about that. That's where the little hand is right now. Okay, this is the bottom half of that competitive efforts report. And it has the private label and it has these 2 bubble charts. And I think these are particularly valuable because you're on there someplace. And it shows, the circle shows where you are on 2 dimensions. One of them is price and quality. That's the vertical. And then on the horizontal, it shows the breadth of the product line, someplace between 50 and 500. And the size of the bubble, where you're located, it shows where you are on that continuum. The size of the bubble shows your relative market position. Now, Team I, and that was the guys that didn't make the shoes at all. And I don't think they put any money in dealer support. You can see how small they are. You can't even pick out which one they are.
I apologize, Professor. It's pretty blurry from my screen. Team I is the one that's like right next to the vertical axis, right?
I'm sorry, say it again.
It's very blurry on my screen. I can't actually make out which one I is.
It looks like a smudge.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I'm looking at on my other computer and it's right up against the horizontal, and then it's all the way up at high end, middle of nowhere out in the boonies on the right one.
Yeah, that's where they are.
Yeah, it's easier to see it on this screen than it is to see it on a share screen for Zoom.
So
The eye doesn't even fit inside the entire smudge, it's too small.
well, this is I think it's a good chart or good graphic because it does give you some idea. This is a quick and dirty. Where do we stand? How are we doing? I'd be looking, if I were company C, I'd be looking, okay, look what company D is doing. They're trying to get into our knickers. They want to get a part of the market that we should have. And I think I have another slide here that shows one that's all clumped up where everybody's selling on
Yeah,
top.
that's
of
the
one
next slide.
another. Okay. So, well, I said that this also has is the lower half of the competitive efforts, and the bottom half of that is the private label market. And remember, this is only something that you sell for excess capacity. So in this case, the buyer, where the little hand is set a minimum price or maximum price they're willing to pay, $50.48. And they have an SQ rating minimum of 5. I said you start off at about 4. And so the marketplace, what they're doing, what the private label buyer is doing is reflecting what the market as a whole has done, because he wants to have a comparable product quality with the retail market. The offer price is based on about 85% of the average price at the wholesale market from the previous year. So this is year 17. I mean, year 18 that you're putting in. Year 17 probably had a number of an average sale price of around $57, $58. And so they want to buy at 15% below that so that they can then take and add the advertising and marketing support to their product and still end up with a cost basis that's comparable to the retailer. Now, while this was the offer price here, the maximum offer price was $50. You had, if you look across there, you have people bidding down as low as $32. And nobody was really pushing the envelope to see if they could get up to that $49 or $48 level where they could have made a little bit better margin. If you
So
look
I
at it,
see, like, one of them, they offered 71 and none sold, even though they're significantly cheaper than the first company that offered it at a higher and sold basically all of their shares.
mhm,
That's an interesting, because you think that a private label would be taking the lowest because of the way you said it's a chart.
it's supposed to, and why that you get an anomalous situation like that, I can't tell you.
It might be because it's in a different country than the others. So, for instance, it might be Europe that accepted the 71, but like
Yeah.
South America got the 32.
Well, this is the whole industry, and this is for North America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 'cause it sticks out to me as far as the data analyst looking, and it sticks out like for some interesting concept.
Yeah, and I can't tell you why.
And you say that they have no reputation as far as one year to the next. So like Team A did not support private label more earlier in the production run than
This
Team
this
J.
this is strictly a whore's market. Whoever has the highest price gets the sale, and you can love them and leave them. You don't have any loyalty at all, either by the manufacturer or by the buyer. So we could go back to the preceding chart and compare what they're selling their private label shoes. Well, in fact, we can, because this is industry 87, year 18, Company A, and remember Company A was selling so well. They were selling at $64 a pair, and yet they sold out and could not deliver 301,000 pairs of shoes, which in turn they sold at $41 a pair to the private label buyer. And I think even the people in management and not in finance and accounting can see that's not a way to make any money. They were giving away a lot. All right. The other thing we could notice here is that on this private label, that Team C had a good price on their shoes, but their quality wasn't up to the minimum standard that the buyer had. Now this is the same chart, different company, but notice how how concentrated they are and how much they're cutting each other up in the marketplace. These companies at this point, it's only year 12, so it's still early. But they all are right on top of one another, and that means that nobody are going to hit their numbers. Now, this is the comparative efforts report again. And here I did want to highlight the fact that the companies clearly had failed to rebuild their manufacturing equipment. When you've got those kind of numbers, that means that they just didn't have equipment to produce the product. There you are. Company had 100% of, they spent all their money. They spent $10 million on advertising and $1,105,000 in dealer support and didn't sell a single shoe. And that's because they let their equipment get pulled out. Now, so that brings us to, was it Genesis that asked the question about the fixed assets? Or was it Blake? I know that there was a discussion there we had earlier. But
I just asked, this is Genesis, I had just asked if the new equipment should be purchased on year 14, but then you clarified that we should just be monitoring the level of production. And then as it goes down, we can purchase new equipment.
Yeah, and you get instantaneous availability of that equipment.
And just to be clear, you are buying the equipment, right? There's no option to lease it and then have it, on a 3-year lease to where you're just re-upping it?
No, don't have that yet. That's one decision too many. So you do have the 2 options to buy. You can buy the regular or the refurbished.
Okay.
And more to Genesis's point real quick, just so everyone's not confused. It's not like you lose 20% of the amount that it generates every single year, right, Professor? It's you have it 1 year and then the next year it's gone.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay.
It's not as though, geez, I last year I produced 100 units on this machine. It's still out there working. I've only got 90 out of it this year and 80 out of it the next year. I think it's an all or nothing thing.
I agree, which is why G suddenly dropped from like 1.5 mil to 0.
Well, so you have no idea that the machine is starting to actually depreciate or get old. It's just
well, you probably
gone.
do. It's probably under one of the reports. It's just you need to be aware of where to look.
Or you got to know when you purchase that machine and know that in 10 years, on year whatever, that
5
is
years,
going to
yeah.
disappear.
If it's 10 years, you don't need to worry about it.
Go ahead. Well, there's the report on productivity is out there. It's the next section on the navigation tab, the next full section. And it shows that you've got to manage two different things, the factory space and the equipment, two different decisions. The factory is a shell, it's an empty warehouse, but it has enough floor space that you could put in equipment initially, sufficient equipment to produce 5 million pairs of shoes. But you've got, on the one hand, that equipment is depreciating every year, and on the other hand, you can make additions so you could take it up to 7 or 8 million. And each of the buildings has a maximum capacity for equipment. And when the equipment's in there, there's a maximum capacity for the machinery. So you're managing two different dynamics. So here is the it's company operating reports is where you find that. And the first report shows you a summary of what factory floor space is available. And there is in that factory enough room for 5 million pairs in North America. But in the production equipment, there apparently a bunch of equipment have been taken out. This is year 15. That makes sense. There's enough time there to depreciate it fully, and people didn't replace it. So while they have space available for 5 million pairs, the amount of equipment that they had would only let them produce 250,000. So it's not too hard to watch, but you got to watch it. Okay, go on to the next one.
Sure thing.
Yep, go ahead.
I'll let you read that. And there's a lot of learning in that report, or in that statement there. So more learning on that statement. So this is in the footwear industry report. That's the first of the 3 sections that you use a lot. The footwear industry report, the competitive intelligence reports, and the company operating reports. I don't know that I've ever looked at the performance highlights. There are 2 sections to this report. This is page number 5 in the footwear industry report. And there's 2 sections. The first section shows the income statement and balance sheets for the for the industry as a whole, and then has the selected financial statistics. And that's the one that I watch, because if you go all the way to the right in that report, the second to the last column on the right shows the number of days inventory on hand. And when you started out at the, if you wanted to find out how am I doing, how's my inventory compare with what a good quality manufacturer would carry, I can just go up to the panel up at the corner up in the right where it says year 20, do the drop down and go back to year 10. And that'll show me what the number of days inventory on hand was when we took over management. And that number's 10 days. If you notice, this is that same industry number 87. And you remember I was the one that was their market share was the smudge on the report. Look how much inventory they've got. $5 days. And of course, that's easy to explain. They didn't produce anything. And so whatever they had was probably some old boxes in the corner of the warehouse that they were just hadn't been able to ship out yet. But there's 2 teams there. Team J, and I don't even remember whether there was a Team J. It may have just been an idle thing that introduces the same decision every year. And Team F have 889 days worth of inventory.
2 years.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And I could pull up another report. There was one company that got up to 1,300 days. I don't think they ever sold anything.
What?
But
Okay then.
the reason that happens is because you put out a production forecast based on a sales forecast, and then the sales fail to come through. And so you end up, say you put out 1 million pairs as the sales bogey, and you produce 1 million pairs, but you actually only sold 900,000. There's 100,000 pairs that are left over, and they go into inventory. And if you come back the next month or the next decision and say, well, you know, we should be able to do better. Let's make another 1 million pairs or 1,100,000 pairs, and you only sell 900,000. Well, you had now 200,000 more. You got 300,000 pairs in inventory. So what you have to do when the inventory overage is small, where you're sitting like some of these companies, there's one company sitting here with 34 days and another one with 20 days. They can cure their problem pretty easily just by reducing their production by a small amount and allowing the sales to sweep out everything that's made plus some of the stuff that's still in the warehouse.
Now, couldn't you also send the overage to the private label? So if you kind of get an idea of what you're going to have overage, you can send what you believe is the overage to private label to alleviate the
Yeah.
days in inventory.
Yeah, a way you would do that, and you don't build the shoes for private label until you get the order. So the stuff you got on the floor has got the your company label on it and not the Walmart, but that's okay because you just reduce your production for branded product next quarter or next decision. Allow it to flow out with the inventory you've got on hand and use the idle capacity you've created to make private label stock. Now, if you get too far out of hand like these people are, recognize if you try and solve the problem by shutting down your factory, you're still going to incur all the costs of having the factory. So that's not a viable option to you when you're sitting with 889 days worth of inventory. And the other alternative is to discount it out to a liquidator. And mark down in your notebook when you go out in the real world, the first inventory write down you take is the cheapest.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get rid of your stuff, cut the price, cut it to the bone, and get that stuff off the floor. Some of you may be old enough to remember a company called Circuit City.
Yeah, the spaceship in the ceilings.
What's that?
Spaceship in the ceilings of all the stores I remember going in as a kid.
Yeah, well, they were a great company, but they ended up going bankrupt. And when they liquidated it, what they did, they got liquidators in there that started out with taking all the merchandise and discounting at 10%. Well, I wouldn't even get up out of my chair to go get in my car, let alone drive to a place for a 10% discount. Didn't really do the job. So then they came back the next week and it was 15%. And the week after that, it was 20%. And they finally got it up to where it was around 50% discount. But I think that liquidator should have started off at 50 and blown that stuff out because they had to keep people on their payroll while they agonized through these little dinky discounts to get the stuff sold. So the cheapest one you have is the one you do first time.
Speaking of like old companies, what would you think of Blockbusters, the way they handled it? Because they still have one single living store in Portland, and they ended up turning it into like some type of Airbnb, I believe I heard.
What did you call it? B&B, like bed and breakfast?
Yeah, where you can rent it out for the night and you can watch whatever movies inside the store, and you can snack on whatever snacks they have. Like they'll fill it up and they'll make it look like the old store, like you were a kid, and they'll give you like something to sleep on, and you can basically watch movies all night.
Oh,
If I'm not mistaken, that was only one time. If I'm not mistaken, that was only one time, and it was for the local city. So it was you couldn't go if you were out of state.
Oh, look at that.
But that's kind of an interesting outcome for the end of life for Blockbuster. Fabulous company. They missed the market. I don't think Netflix had any idea of where they would be able to go with their product. So it was one company that just didn't ignored reality, and the other one that happened to catch the wave, and boy, they've gone gangbusters. So let's see, days inventory, we've gotten that taken care of. And I show bad ones and good ones, 12 days. That's great. Very hard to keep that. This is one report that not many people look at, but it is very important. It's an industry overview, page 4 of the footwear industry report. And again, this is the left-hand column, and it's that first section. Competitive intelligence section is the middle. But if you go to the industry overview, what it shows you is the forecast demand for the world industry for shoes. It gives you the branded and the private label demand. And I've drawn red lines down there from the forecasted demand, in this case for year 13, and we're in year 12 right now. And it shows that there's a total demand for that next year of 80,666,000 pairs. And the actual capacity for that same period is 83,359,000 pairs. Now, when you see that report, over at the right, there's an analysis that tells you how this relates to the overall industry. And it says currently there's a good balance between potential supply and projected demand in the upcoming year. However, the industry will need additional productive capacity to satisfy projected growth in the years ahead. Now, when I look at that, I know that there will always be about 1 million pairs of shoes, maybe 1.5 million in beginning inventory, because there's always inventory on the floor. He didn't get it on the truck the last day of the month. It's being staged for shipment the day after tomorrow. There's always a reason that there's inventory in the system. And the potential production, it shows there on the left-hand side, of 81 million pairs is running at 120% of capacity. You can go overtime and run an extra 20%. So I think that there's a real shortage of material for this coming period. And if you were to take the next year, where the forecasts are probably pretty good, there's going to be a real shortage of supply. So what do you do if there's a shortage of supply?
Obviously, increase it.
You can increase
Depending on whether or not
the cost.
you want to flood the market.
So what do you do though for right now?
So you can obviously, if there's a shortage, you can reduce the price in order to make demand go up in order to match what you've got currently.
Okay, if there's a shortage of demand, you can do that. What do you do when there's a shortage of supply?
You would raise your price, wouldn't you?
Bingo, yeah. I had one group one time that's very conservative, and they never expanded their factories. And the expected demand exceeded the supply by about 5%. And I couldn't get anybody to say, well, what we ought to do is increase our price. And all you have to do is go back to last March and see what happened to toilet paper. So just this is a report. I just take a quick look at each time when the results come out, so I can feel where I am in the industry and can I do anything with pricing based on excess demand and not enough supply.
And once the game starts, is this something we're going to be like looking at in class as a lecture to kind of like ad we look at, or is it completely separate at that point?
Completely separate. And we'll probably come back after you've made about 4 or 5 decisions and look at where you stand and spend some time on it in class. But essentially you're on your own, and you'll find this same lecture out there on called Zoom lectures and PowerPoints. And if you don't have the most recent one, I'll get it on there before I go to bed tonight. So that you could look at that and see, be able to review what you've seen here. So that's a summary of the thoughts I communicated there. So there are the other reports, the footwear industry report, the company operating reports. Print them all out. That's my advice. And I'm old fashioned. I still print out all my emails before I read them. Now I'm going to go through this very quickly because this is in the overview of the manual. And this you may not understand, so I'll explain this. There are 2 things that you're going to be evaluated on. One is the investor expectation. And it's just like in the stock market, there's certain things that an investor looks at before they make a buying decision. So half of your performance evaluation will be on the investor's assessment of your product. And the other is best in industry. And so the game looks at how each of you did on a year-to-date or game-to-date basis. And based on the ranking that you have in that, it gives you a value. Now, there are 5 things the investor looks at. Growing EPS. What are EPS?
Earnings per share.
Okay, yeah, it's earnings per share. Goes to grow it at least to at least 5.25 by year 15 and at least $10 by year 20. A lot of this will take, if you were just to have a conservative, straight on kind of an approach, the market will just rise and you'll rise with it. But you can drive it by better marketing, more aggressive marketing, and you can make that market grow faster than the game makers intended to grow. So it'll grow by itself. There'll be more people that need shoes. But if you really get a good marketing plan going, you'll find that people want to buy 2 pairs of shoes instead of just 1. And so you can influence the growth of the whole industry. They want to see you grow annual ROE. And remember what ROE is?
Return on equity.
Return on equity to 25% by year 15 and 30% by year 20. And then to increase your credit rating to an A- or higher by year 20. Now your credit rating is a function of how tightly leveraged you are, how much borrowing you do. As you make the decision, and I hope you all will make decisions to build factories, as you make those decisions, you'll your credit rating will go down because you're going to have to borrow money to build that factory. And that's just fine. That's to be expected because you've got a year in which you had nothing but cash outflow to build the factory and no inflow from sales. But the following year, when you put it up, when you begin operating at it, you'll begin to get sales and profitability, and your credit rating will go back up. So don't be afraid of getting a credit rating going down in the early part of the game. The other 2 things are stock price, take it from 100 a year, 100 a share, up to 250. That's going to be a function of the earnings per share, just that simple. And then achieve an image rating. And the game says itself, you can't really explain exactly how you improve your image rating, but you want to get it up from 70 to 80 over the 10 years. This is a combination of styling, quality, market share, and corporate citizenship and social responsibility. But I still say, don't get overzealous with that. I can set these values anywhere I want to, but I leave them right where they come from the game, 20% each of those 5 characteristics. Those are all part of investor expectations. Some tips and advice: watch the videos, look at the drop-down links, watch everything that's out there. It'll help you make better decisions. Same with the help pages. Follow the recommended decision-making procedures in the game. Take advantage of practice rounds. Make some crazy decisions. Make a log of what you were thinking at the time you put the decision in, so when you get the results back, you can go back and get an honest report on what you were actually thinking at that time. And that is very important to having a good record of your success. I tell you to print out the hard copy of the player's manual, but again, I'm old-fashioned. You got to take risks with this game. And the word for risk comes from the Arabic meaning earning one daily bread. So it's expected that you will go out there and borrow money. And interestingly, I found that I have a lot of trouble getting you young people to do that, because a lot of you went through a period about 10 years ago where your parents either lost their job or might have been forced to leave their house. And so you don't want to get back into debt again. But reasonable debt is expected. It's something you have to do to make good money. So we didn't get as far along as I thought we might have, but who cares? This is there's some good stuff here.
So are the practice rounds, are those individual decisions, or do we do that as a group?
The practice rounds
Yes.
it'll be next week.
Is it as a group we do the practice rounds?
Is it? And I didn't hear the words in between there.
Are those group decisions for the practice rounds? Oh,
Yes.
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so you're going to have to get together, and probably you'll spend as much time trying to get to know one another as anything else. But that's important that you find a way to get along. Be sure to, there's another set of slides that tell decisions is have only one person do the inputting. So you can fiddle around all afternoon, but when you get ready for the real decisions, the input person is the only person that can put them in the computer. Now, a number of you were talking, and I love that. I mean, that's really what makes these classes interesting. But I know some of the rest of you were silent. Does anybody have a lack of comfort with where we are? Was anything too complex or obtuse? Did I do a decent job when I got going the right way? You all have my phone number. I like to talk to y'all. And so you're always welcome. The young lady from Vietnam, I've not talked to her for about 5 or 6 months. So I want to make a call with you, but I think you're working now. Let me know if I can. What did she say? She said it on, I think she sent that message by WeChat. So I have somebody to talk to. Let me know if you have time. It's been a long time, and I haven't heard your relaxing voice. How nice. So I like to have calls. My line is always open. So give it a shot. And if I have not gotten all the information out there correctly, set me straight.
All right.
How good is the messaging, the internal message board within the BSG game? Is that a really good use of communication for a group.
Yeah, you're talking about the thing called discussions?
I'm talking about the actual message board within BSG. There's a message center, and I just wanted to see if that's like a good use of like getting
So-
information through the group.
As I
Mhm.
understand it, oops, sorry.
Hmm?
As I understand it, it's just like sending an email to your classmate Blake. It
Yeah,
should
I
give
just-
you an email and you should be able to respond to it there. If not, then check the BSG and see if they responded to you via that.
This is this in Blackboard?
No, this is for the BSG system itself.
Okay,
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you had any experience using the BSG, the message center on the
I-
BSG game, and see if that's an accurate use
I-
of communication.
really don't have any. I know you kids are way in advance, you know, sometimes I still, as you can see behind me, I still like the tactile touch of books, and I prefer reading that to trying to do things in a digital format.
Professor, do you mind if we
Yes.
help Blake a little bit?
Huh?
Do you mind if we help Blake a little bit? I sent you a message via the BSG game earlier. Do you mind checking whatever email you have related to that and see if you have a message from Ryan Langevin Sheffield?
How do I find that? The only thing I see down here is a chat. And that
So-
was,
This would be for your email system. So I believe you use AOL.
yes, I do use AOL.
Okay. So it might be there.
Well, let me see if I can get that.
Sure. And while you're looking for that, if there's anyone else, I didn't mean to take control of the situation. If there's any other questions, go ahead.
I do want to talk with Samuel Morfin. So,
I have to jump off. Thank you, Professor. Have a good evening.
okay, Genesis. Better luck with the internet system next week.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Hey, Blake, I just sent, I'm in your group. I know you
There
sent
we go.
a job for the group. I sent a message back. I don't know if you got anything on the BSG.
Yeah, let me check. 'Cause I
Okay.
sent one out at the beginning. Let me see if I can reset that web page. Yeah, okay. I got your message.
Okay.
Is it just for,
Yeah, so that works.
Okay.
is it just in the BSG that you got, Blake, or is it also in your email?
I have nothing tied to my school email
All right.
or my personal for that matter. So the BSG is itself proprietary message system.
Okay. So, Professor, I don't know if you just got that, but we just checked. There should be nothing in your email.
Okay, and there isn't. There's something from Naomi. Okay, but that's it from your group.
Yeah, so Herman, if that worked for you, you want that to be our main source of communication
Sorry. I did get an email actually.
on your school email?
Yeah, on the email that I used to log in for the BSG game yeah. So
Oh, okay.
Awesome. So
Okay.
just keep an eye out for both of those in that case.
Yeah, as long as it goes through, that's all that matters. 'Cause
Exactly.
This will just be a tab that I have open, so if I get something that comes through, then that'll be that.
all right then, guys.
Oh, yeah, yep, I got an email as well.
All
I
right.
didn't know if I used my personal or my other one. Okay. Yeah, so we'll use that for our communication then.
Sounds cool. All right. Perfect. All right then, Professor. Have a nice night.
Okay, Herman. And let's see who else is, I do want to talk with, everyone else y'all can go home. It's time to go get something to eat.
I just have
Um,
a question about the presentations for group A and B.
Yeah,
That's gonna be next Wednesday,
next Friday.
next Friday. Sorry, next Friday. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And so if you have any questions about it during the week and you want to call and ask, what should we do on this, that, or the other thing, I'll be
Okay.
glad to help you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Stephanie.
Professor, I came a little late. Well, I came kind of late. I was like 30 minutes late to coming in. I was coming back from work. Did I miss anything? I think there's a presentation going on. I'm not super sure about.
That's a tough question. I hope in the first 30 minutes I did something worthwhile, but well, let's turn off the recording here to begin with.